What is the perfect Social Security timing strategy for you? Well, today I'm going to explain a framework to help you make the perfect decision for yourself as far as when to collect Social Security if you plan to retire early. And then I'm going to show you a case study so we can see how collecting it early versus delaying it would have affected your retirement income during some of the worst market periods in history. Once again, this is Matt. I'm a certified financial planner and advisor over at 1 Degree Advisors. And on this channel, I make videos to help you retire early with confidence. Okay, so for many people, their Social Security strategy is just simply turn on benefits as soon as possible or as soon as they retire. And for some folks, that might work just fine and maybe be really the best option for them. But if you're someone who has been diligently saving for retirement in an IRA, Roth, 401k, etc., and you plan to retire earlier than the traditional retirement, it's best to first put all your financial pieces together before deciding when to start taking benefits. This means understanding how much you need to spend, how much tax you're going to pay in retirement, is there longevity in your family or legacy goals, and more. So basically, in other words, doing a simple break-even analysis on how long you need to live to get ahead and not leave money on the table is just a basic starting point. It's an incomplete analysis. There are so many more financial and non-financial factors to think about. In order to perfectly time Social Security for you, you need to put all the puzzle pieces together and not make this decision in a vacuum. So sometimes the perfect strategy on paper is not the one that will give you the highest quality of life. And I want to encourage you to think in terms of what decision will give you the best retirement imaginable and highest quality of life. And here are 3 questions to ask yourself as you're thinking through which direction to go for yourself. Number 1 is, do you have the assets to support your lifestyle? A lot of people are scared at taking higher withdrawals at the beginning of retirement. They want to see a large amount of money coming out of their assets. If the amount you need to live on is a lot more than your portfolio can handle, it might make sense to take it early. Versus if your needs for the portfolio are healthy compared to the size, we can delay. And then number 2 is, how willing are you to adjust your income throughout retirement? If not when markets have corrections during retirement, having more stability with Social Security can possibly take more pressure off your investment portfolio. And if you're less willing to tighten the belt when markets drop, then you might want to consider taking it earlier. But if you're flexible, and I'll show you what I mean by that later in the video, then you can take advantage of delaying Social Security. And lastly, do you have longevity in your family? If that is the case, it might make better sense to wait and use that guaranteed income source as sort of longevity insurance. But if you feel like you're on borrowed time, perhaps you want to take it earlier. Now, those are just 3 of the biggest considerations. There are obviously many more, but let's put all these puzzle pieces together and go through examples of how what strategy you choose will change depending on how you take income in retirement. So meet Joe and Jan, not real names, of course. They want to retire next year and they'll both be about age 60. They have investments of around $2 million. They have $500,000 in a brokerage account. Joe has a 401k with about $1 million in it. Jan has a 403b with about $300,000 in it. And then Joe lastly has a Roth IRA with about $200,000 in it. So as far as liabilities go as well, they have no debt, other than credit cards that they pay off every month. So if we run a deeper analysis based on those numbers and we use a dynamic spending strategy, and if we assume their portfolio can grow at an average rate of around 6.5% through retirement, let's first look at how much they can expect to spend if they retire early and delay Social Security until age 70. And if we scroll down here, we can see that they can expect to spend around $127,000 at the start of retirement, assuming the next year they retire in 2025. And if they take Social Security at age 70, it will start at the end of 2034 here. And we can see that in 2035, they get that full year of that Social Security benefit of around $59,000 and $41,900. So you can see they're taking more withdrawals at the beginning of retirement to bridge the gap before Social Security. And I'll show you how that would play out for them had they retired in some of the worst market periods in a second. But the important piece here is that we can see that portfolio withdrawals are substantially cut down by about down to $27,000 once Social Security starts. But we can still see their total income is about the same, just we shift away from the portfolio now that Social Security has kicked in. But let's look how this looks visually when I scroll up here. This chart shows their income visually over time. We see that by the end of the year in 2025, this yellow and purple section right here is their monthly salary while they're working, which stops when they retire. And then after that, this black section right here is when their portfolio is going to pretty much make up all their income before Social Security kicks in. So that's about 10 years of portfolio withdrawals. Now, clearly, if you decide to delay Social Security, your income having longer exposure to the market and more potential for sequence return risk, which is when the market drops in retirement and you're taking too much income than your portfolio can handle. But I'm going to talk about how to deal with that later in the video. But you're probably wondering how these cash flows might look and how they might be different if they took Social Security early. So if we run the same numbers but use the early claiming strategy and we go down the table again, but now we're going to see that Social Security is going to be taken at 62. We're really only having 6-figure withdrawals for them for about 2 years. So this gap really tightens here. You're taking less sequence of return risk if you claim it early. In 2025, when they start withdrawals, they're going to be taking slightly less per year because they know that Social Security benefit is going to be getting a reduction from their full retirement age. And once again, withdrawals drop, but this time it's in half at around age 63 here. Now, when you go from the accumulation phase to the decumulation phase and you retire early, whether you start Social Security early or delay it to age 70, you're still going to be subject to sequence of returns risk. And one of the ways we can help hedge that risk is by building an income strategy that is flexible and dynamic rather than static and rigid. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that when times are good, we give ourselves little raises and we can spend a little bit more. But when, not if, we reach some bad times, we tighten the belt. Because you really don't know what sort of market you're going to retire into. And what you're looking at on my screen is exactly that. This is a dynamic spending strategy where we factor in your assets, your longevity, taxes, and having the proper investment plan in place and the right amount of conservative versus growth investments for you. But for John and Jen, we set the upper and lower guardrails for their spending. For example, if their portfolio rises by 5%, they're eligible to have a nice little $500 per month raise. However, the lower guardrail here is to hedge against that sequence of return risk, where if the portfolio drops by around 27%, their monthly income is going to have to drop as well. And this is something that we implement for clients where it's monitoring their accounts on a monthly basis and adjusting throughout their entire retirement. So now that you understand this, you're going to be able to see how this all works together in coordination with your Social Security claiming strategy. So what you're looking at my screen is the way we can back test retirement income for Joe and Jan during different market periods. And the first thing we're going to look at is compare taking Social Security early versus at 70 and what that might look like income-wise if you decide to retire right before the dot-com bubble in 1999. So first of all, this baby blue line here is the planned income amount we're just projecting over the retirement. So right off the bat, you can see the planned income amount if they were to take Social Security at 62 was about $10,700 per month. Again, that's what they plan to spend after adjusting for inflation over time, and they took Social Security at 62. And it's important to note that the planned income, the planned spending will be going down over time because of that retirement spending smile that I often talk about. And that's basically the research that shows that retiree spending is not static. In reality, it changes over time based on their age. You know, they have the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years. And I talk about that in other videos. I'm not going to get the details in this one. But next is this thick blue line, which is the income they would have actually experienced if they had retired before the dot-com bubble. And we can see that that's exactly in line with their planned spending at first when we look at that baby blue line below it. But we can see that it's actually going to be about $600 less than if they were to delay Social Security. And that's because you're using more of your investments early on in retirement and spending more if you delay it versus later on. And then locking in a higher Social Security benefit in the future as sort of longevity insurance. But you can see that in both scenarios, whether they took it at either age, they would have been able to increase their spending a little bit if they follow that dynamic approach. You're getting about $900 per month more in this scenario if you delay Social Security at this point. It's not until about 2009 during the great financial crisis where you're getting less income than planned if you took Social Security early. You can see here that it drops below the planned income. You still get about $100 less if you took it early and about $400 less than your planned income. About $10,800 versus $10,400, and it's not until about 2013 until you start to come up back above that planned income amount. All right, now if you look at the stagflation era, and if we say they retired in 1968, it'd be pretty similar at first income-wise with the dot-com bubble, but you get about $800 more in income per month if you delayed Social Security. And then you continue to get a little bit of a bumps here until around 1980 where your income goes down. If you took Social Security early at the age of 62, it would drop below what that planned amount was. And if you continue to drop below to its lowest in about September of 1982, we're getting about $1,100 less in income if we compare the two claiming strategies. But later on, once you start getting into the early 90s, that's when in both scenarios you can take more income than that little baby blue line, which was planned because the market's starting to fare a little bit better in the 90s. And what's important here is that if we look at the baby blue line in the 90s, in both scenarios, you'd be able to generate more income than planned for if you choose to. So again, it really depends on, do you want to have more potential for income early on and taking on more risk in your retirement portfolio, even if it means partially spending down the portfolio in the meantime? And are you okay with being older and sort of converting that uncertainty of the market into certainty of a higher Social Security benefit? This is why looking at that simple break-even analysis is just insufficient when it comes to claiming Social Security. Now, if you just tell me how long you're going to be in retirement, I'll let you know the perfect strategy for you, but the perfect strategy comes down to what sort of income experience will give you the greatest quality of life in retirement. Obviously, history does not guarantee future results, but we can use it to help you set expectations for what income might feel like in retirement. You don't know what type of market you are going to retire into. You could retire into good times where risk goes down over time. You could take a lot more income and then delay Social Security, or you could retire in bad times where risk is going up, you're taking too much income, and it might be better to take the Social Security benefit early because your portfolio might not be able to handle all that pressure. But Social Security timing is just one piece of your retirement. And if you have retirement investments, I'd argue that your withdrawal strategy is equally, if not even more important than when you claim your benefits. If you rely on something just like the 4% rule for your retirement and you don't factor in taxes, market corrections, longevity, you'd be leaving money on the table, or even worse, spending too much and not even knowing about it. So I made a video on how much you can expect to spend if you retire early by putting everything together in a case study for you guys to watch. And you can watch that by clicking right here. Again, this is Matt. I'm a certified financial planner and advisor over at 1 Degree Advisors. If you'd like to talk to me or with someone on my team about your financial plan, you can click the link in the description and chat with one of us. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys on the next one.